guys, it's Celestia, and I think it goes without saying at this point that the current state of AI has left artists everywhere in an increasingly overwhelming state of fear and despair. With every passing day, it gets better at spitting out an almost infinite number of images mimicking almost any style of human art in a fraction of the time it would take a human to make it. In the process, not only does it devalue human creativity and real art, and encourage the idea that its sole value is as a product that serves a profitable purpose and nothing more, it threatens the careers and livelihoods of all of the artists who spent years, sometimes decades, learning how to make the genuine artifact that cheap knockoffs are now being sold as the alternative to. And that's overwhelmingly depressing. I've talked a lot about the morality, or lack thereof, of AI art, the legality, the news related to it, the steps being taken to fight against it. But what I haven't discussed is just how much damage it's done to artists of pretty much every kind in terms of mental health. It's easy to break down the logistics and present my opinions, but it's a lot harder to just honestly say what we're all thinking. This hurts. It hurts more than a lot of us want to admit. It hurts to see society throw away the value of human creativity, tell us we're irrelevant and obsolete, and completely diminish the significance and worth of something that we find so beautiful that we've devoted our time, if not our entire lives, to pursuing. It's terrifying to wonder if there's still going to be any future left for artists trying to make their passions into careers, if this might be the death of the dreams that we've been living to follow. And it might be even more terrifying to not only consider giving up on art in response to that, but accept that giving up might be the most reasonable course of action. Artists everywhere are wondering if there's any point anymore to learning how to hone their skills if programs can emulate them better than they can execute them. If there's any chance of them succeeding as professional artists when companies would rather cut costs and get any number of image generators to do their jobs worse but cheaper instead. And as much as I want to say that's unrealistic, unreasonable, and we have nothing to worry about, I'm reaching a point where I can't, and I have to acknowledge that those fears aren't baseless. I want this channel to be a place where I tell artists to follow their dreams and devote their lives to the passion for art that makes them worth living. I want to tell them how, set them up for success, give advice on how to sustain themselves through the thing they love. I want to say that we'll all beat AI because human art is better than anything it can make. But the fact that I do believe that it isn't enough anymore for me to be able to say any of those things. It's gotten to a point where I feel like it's irresponsible to keep telling artists that it's feasible to make art their jobs. Because at least in the conventional sense, I don't know if that's true anymore. On a personal level, my stance hasn't changed. Art is and always will be an expression of human creativity that has value by way of that alone. And nothing artificial has the power to replace that. There will always be people that appreciate that and recognize its value, no matter how many others lose sight of it in favor of the cheap imitations that AI generates. It can't replicate the soul, the life experiences, emotions, and perspectives that artists instinctively interject into their work, at least not intentionally or effectively. And those things that are missing from AI-generated images will always give human-made art immortal value in comparison. But on a professional level, things have changed, and I think we need to honestly talk about how. Before we do though, let me take a moment to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Steamroller Animation, because I can't talk about the value of human-made art, even in the age of AI, without showing you a prime example of it. And that's exactly what this is. Spice Frontier is a sci-fi 3D animated series that follows a 6-member crew's journey to a desert planet, Beltegar, which quickly takes a turn for the worse when they crash on the way. Not only do they have to figure out how to repair the Serrano, their now fairly damaged ship, they have to do it before the planet's people find out that they're there, because as it turns out, it's not nearly as empty as it first seems. Produced by Steamroller Animation, an independent animation studio, and created by a former DreamWorks animator, Spice Frontier was inspired heavily by Star Trek and Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown, and their incredibly talented team of artists combined those influences with their own creativity and created what I honestly think is an absolute masterpiece. The pilot is live right now on the Steamroller Stories YouTube channel, and I can't encourage you enough to go check it out. I've always been a huge sci-fi fan, so naturally it was pretty immediately right up my alley by way of genre alone, but it was the art and the characters that got me genuinely hooked on it once I started watching. The environment design is so exceptional that they haven't just created a unique world of their own with it. They've depicted it with so much vibrance and character that you can't help but feel like you're a part of it. And the characters? I think I might love them even more. Their dynamic as a group is so good and compelling and engaging, and they're so uniquely charming that you can't not root for them. This first episode, which is an expanded version of a 7-minute short that they created back in 2020, is hopefully going to be expanded into a full series, and that's something that your viewership and support can help make happen, which I promise you'll want just as much as I do once you've seen it yourselves, because it's impossible not to want more of not just this story, but the world it's created and the crew that's exploring it. Spice Frontier: Escape from Beltegar is linked in this video's description and pinned comment, and I can't encourage you enough to give it a watch. Like I said before, it's a prime example of just how immensely, incomparably valuable human creativity still is and always will be, because this project is a beautiful product of just that, and steamroller animation deserves all of the support in the world to keep bringing it to life. But let's get back to talking about art in the age of AI. In my very first video discussing AI art, I genuinely believed and argued that it would never have the proficiency to replace human artists. And several years later, I don't think I have any choice but to admit that I was wrong, at least to some degree. It can't replace art's creative value, no, at least not in my opinion. But the past years have shown me that in a professional capacity, it kind of can replace human-made art. Companies and individuals alike sincerely seem to value creativity so little that they would rather replace the artists responsible for expressing it with algorithms just to save money. And that's had an undeniable impact on the viability of a multitude of art careers. Traditionally speaking, the options available to us are pretty limited. We can take commissions as freelancers, work in the industry, sell our work on merch, or create content. Obviously, there are other options, but those are the primary ones. Even so, pursuing one or two of those at most has historically been enough to sustain yourself on, at least once you've built either a large enough platform or an impressive enough portfolio to allow for that. With the normalization and popularization of AI image generation, almost all of those avenues are becoming alarmingly less viable. They've always been unstable, but that instability has reached new levels of unpredictability and volatility. People can generate images that they would have commissioned you to make, or the concept art that they would have contracted you to make. They can generate the art that they would have bought as shirts or stickers from your store, and pay a hell of a lot less to get it on whatever they want it on. The methods that artists have relied on for decades to make their passions into sustainable trades aren't just being threatened anymore, they're being obliterated. We have no shortage of reasons to be so demoralized that we want to just give up on it altogether. I do still sometimes. I think most of us do. And I can't even say we're wrong to, not anymore. I was wrong when I said that AI wouldn't threaten us or replace us. It might, but that doesn't mean we can't fight back, because we have more alternatives than we think we do. We have more power than the companies peddling these algorithms think we do too. It's entirely possible that the methods that we depended on to make art our jobs in the past, even the incredibly recent past, might become obsolete soon because of AI, if they haven't already. But maybe we don't need them. Let's look at commissions, the first and most common route that artists pursue when trying to make money from their work. Its most obvious appeal is that it has the lowest barrier of entry. You don't need professional experience to start offering them. And for a long time, there was a fairly reliable progression that could be expected from doing so without it. You charge less until you start improving and build an adequately impressive portfolio of appealing examples of your work, at which point you gradually raise your prices as your skill continues to improve. And customers are generally willing to pay what you charge so long as it corresponds reasonably enough to the quality of work that you can deliver. Artificial image generation has interrupted that progression, and that's putting it generously. I'd be more inclined to say that it stopped it altogether. Customers that would once have been willing to give newer, less skilled beginner artists a chance by commissioning them because their lower prices balanced out that inexperience aren't doing that anymore, because AI can so easily generate something technically similar, if not superior to their work, for free, or at least much cheaper. So there's no motivation to. Choosing to hire a beginner artist who's charging less in order to build the experience they need to progress in their career because they're cheaper than one who already has is no longer appealing to a lot of potential customers because that lower price is no longer sufficiently appealing. The entire reason they were willing to tolerate lower quality artwork in return for their money was because the only alternative was paying a lot more in return for higher quality. Now they can pay almost nothing, sometimes literally nothing, and have the same lower quality delivered by AI instead of a beginner artist. At this point, it's gone from I can pay a beginner artist less for lesser quality or an expert artist more for higher quality to I can use AI for lesser quality for free or pay an expert artist at all for higher quality, which is severely impacting beginner artists' ability to start building the foundations for their careers. They're not even being given the chance to develop the experience needed to turn lesser quality work into higher quality work that they can sustain themselves on, at least in return for any kind of compensation, which makes it infinitely more difficult to develop that career through the same methods that their predecessors did. Beginner artists, however, aren't the only ones losing commission work. It's being lost for artists of all skill levels. In fairness, it's only the shitty clients that we're all losing regardless of skill level. The ones who view art as a product and nothing more, who therefore don't care how it's made or even what it looks like so long as it serves the purpose they want it to. And from that perspective, is that really a loss? Losing clients who don't value your time, effort, skill, or even the final product you deliver to them beyond its functional utility? I mean, fundamentally, no. I don't think any of us actually want to work with those assholes. But financially, yes, because whether we like it or not, we need those clients. Even the worst of them are a big part of the reason we can pay our bills. It's like working as a barista and recognizing that assholes who respond to "Hi, how are you?" with black coffee are a necessary evil, because you have to serve them as politely as the ones who treat you like a human being in order to get by. If they suddenly disappeared, as happy as that might make you, you might lose your job. They're a good 50% at least of the people that go to coffee shops, and if they stop going, your boss stops being able to afford to pay you. Their loss for artists doesn't just mean a loss of income. It means that 50% of the market is effectively gone, and the repercussions of that are far from inconsequential. Yes, the good clients that you actually want to work for, who treat you like a person, value art, and respect human creativity enough to want to pay for it, will stick around. But even though they may have been the only ones you wanted to work for in the first place, them being the only ones you can work for limits your income to an unsustainable degree. Commission-based art careers aren't completely gone, but with the loss of the clients who value art so little that they're willing to turn to AI as an alternative, comes the necessary acceptance of the reality that they're no longer reliable, unless your work is consistently and significantly superior to that. That's the first art job impacted by AI, but unfortunately, selling merch is impacted in almost exactly the same way. The ability to sell your art in the form of dropshipped or handmade merch has always represented a significant portion of an artist's potential income. Putting your work on something with physical utilitarian value is one of the best ways to sell it. Your art's on a shirt or a notebook or a sticker, suddenly its value isn't limited just to the aesthetic appeal of the art alone, because it's given additional value by the fact that the buyer can wear it or use it. That makes it a uniquely promising method of making money from art, but AI-generated images benefit from that same additional value. It's okay if their quality is subpar so long as they're on something useful like a piece of merch. So people are more inclined to accept the frequent and sometimes very obvious flaws of AI-generated art and purchase it anyway if it's on something that has a function outside of just looking nice. That means actual artists selling merch are now competing with images that are forgiven for their flaws in favor of their functionality. So it no longer matters nearly as much that the work of real artists is better. It serves the same purpose one way or another so long as it looks good enough. The quality isn't the priority. More often than not, it's just the recognizability of the subject matter. People will buy a shirt with Alistair from Has Been Hotel on it whether it's obviously flawed or not, because it's Alistair. So it doesn't matter if that depiction was made by a human or not. And that means you can generate hundreds of images of Alistair and sell them just as well on hundreds of pieces of merch much faster than any artist could ever compete with by way of that recognizability alone, because it's more valuable on merch. They'll forgive the fact that AI gave him 87 fingers so long as it's still clear that it's him, especially if they have to pay less. So merch artists are now competing with algorithms that have an overwhelming advantage that they, more often than not, can't beat. But we're still not done. Commissions and merch, unfortunately, aren't the only fields of artistic careers being threatened here. The art industry, animation, gaming, graphic design, and so on, is potentially at more risk than any other. Art studios of every kind are turning to AI to cut costs, because they'd rather save money by getting subpar, flawed, artificial work than employ real artists to bring their ideas to life. The more that technology improves, the more art-based jobs are lost in that field. Fortunately, public opinion does have some power over that. Nintendo, for example, has openly stated their lack of intent to use artificial image generators in their content, and when they were recently accused of doing so anyway, they immediately denied those accusations, because the widespread disapproval of that practice clearly presents enough of a threat to their profits to warrant disavowalment regardless of morality. And it's reassuring that people are anti-AI enough to persuade even massive corporations to reconsider using it for fear of facing backlash, because that might be one of the few remaining motivators for them to continue employing actual human artists. Even so, what companies in the art industry say publicly doesn't always, or even often, represent their actual views or practices. Outwardly claiming not to use AI image generation doesn't immediately reflect an honest absence of its use. Sure, maybe they won't use it in any visible way that can be easily traced back to them in order to avoid real accountability, but that doesn't mean that they won't use it behind the scenes. It doesn't mean they won't use it for concept art that they would have once hired an artist for, but because no one technically needs to ever see it, they can just use AI instead and no one will ever know. Which is one example of, unfortunately, many industry art jobs that even the most publicly anti-AI companies will probably end up replacing with AI, in ways that no one will ever see. Except the artist losing work as a result, of course. That shouldn't be underestimated in terms of its impact on artists' employability. It's entirely possible that industry work will, long-term, be unaffected by AI, and will end up retaining that employability if the AI alternative becomes too despised or legally unreliable to be viable. It's also entirely possible that the exact opposite will happen, and the majority of art-based industry jobs will be eliminated by the vastly cheaper artificially generated substitutes. We can't know which one will happen yet. I was naive enough to think that that wouldn't happen 3 years ago when I made my first video on this, but I don't have confidence in that assertion anymore. What's most likely is that the industry jobs that real human artists will have a shot at getting will be fewer, more competitive, and vastly less secure, with their stability left in the hands of the current state of AI's development and effectiveness. But we've spent enough of this video talking about the art-based careers that AI might realistically take away. Let's talk about why we don't need them, because ultimately we are clinging to a system that no longer values human creativity. We're relying on clients that don't care about us or our art. We're relying on customers who care less about our work than what it's on. We're relying on an industry that views creativity as an unnecessary side effect of producing a visual product. Like, do we really want to fight to keep our value in the eyes of people who would so easily dismiss it? Do we want to waste our energy fighting for a place in an industry that's turning to AI with little to no prompting just because it's easier and cheaper and everything that we can offer that it can't is worthless? We may as well just replace them too. Like, honestly, we really don't need them. If you want a career in art because you want to bring ideas to life, those ideas don't have to belong to companies or clients that don't care about your art. They're not entitled to it, and you're not limited to providing it. It took Nintendo shockingly little time to deny their use of AI art, and it doesn't matter whether they used it or not. It matters that they understood how significant and detrimental those accusations would be socially. People don't want AI slop in the media and content they consume, at least if they value creativity in any real, meaningful way. But the majority of companies are using it anyway, and they're losing public favor as a result. They're suffering the consequences. It's prompting people to see novelty in human-made art as a bonus where we had once taken it for granted as an expected feature. We're coming to expect cheap AI-generated garbage from pretty much everything. Its absence is becoming novel, valuable, and admirable in ways that it never was before. Independent creations from real artists are subsequently becoming uniquely rare. There's a new appreciation for independent creations from real artists, because they represent a desire to honor human creativity when it's ultimately no longer necessary to, apparently. There's a place for human artists now, even if it isn't what it used to be. It's making what AI can't. And contrary to popular belief, there's no shortage of those things. The stories we've always wanted to tell with our work, AI can't. The indie projects that we've always dreamed of bringing to life, AI can't. And they're infinitely more valuable as a result of us making them instead. It would be, in my opinion, naive to argue that old art careers aren't being threatened by AI. And I'm calling my own former self naive in the process, so I don't take that lightly because I really don't like being naive. But now more than ever, people want the thing that they didn't realize they enjoyed so much in art until it was absent: humanity. Maybe we've lost the ability to reliably pursue the avenues that once defined artistic careers because of AI. But our skills have left us more equipped to fill the emptiness that AI leaves behind. Independent projects like Spice Frontier, webcomics, graphic novels, narratives in the form of games or media, animations, content creation. The authenticity of that kind of art is becoming more important than ever because it's not something AI can reliably imitate, and it's very, very obvious when it tries and fails to, which is exactly what we need to capitalize on. Yes, we've lost jobs. We've lost the viability of commissions, merch, and even industry work, but we have the power to create new jobs in their place. There will always be creative positions that can't be filled by anything artificial. Those are what we need to focus on prioritizing. As much as AI can make artists feel like our only option left is to give up, it isn't. We just have to adapt. If companies and customers want to replace us and the work that we create with cheap AI knockoffs, let them. It's all they'll have left as more and more artists ditch jobs working for them and start using their skills to work for themselves instead. These algorithms can imitate art, but they can't imitate the soul and creativity behind it. This is an opportunity to leave the jobs that don't value that in the past and create new ones that do. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Special thank you as always to channel members Joseph Solomon, TC Pratt, Haruki Saluzzo, Peachy, King Good James, Art of Amethyst Fable, Extinction Animation, Andy the Hedgehog, Kai the Memer, Jazz, Abyss Reborn, Veranotte, Josayori, and Stardust, as well as patrons Batman, Kyle Lowe, Blue Swanson, Jamisha Walker, Alengshi, Kim Yen, Crazy Asar, Gentong, Grayson Xavier, Blah Mage, TC Pratt, Finn, Celine Merriman, Eldritchia, The Stray Dog, Ulura, Greg Noble, Dekugon, Jenny Chan, Catbuzz, Mac, Lucy Amajiki, Selena Bibi, Pryday, Totally Shogun, Insomniac Sleep Schedule, Wing Tang Wong, Marie Greer, Potato, Jazz, Voidwalker, Latte Tabby, Christian Cook, Adam Surovietz, Doriaki, and Various, and I'll see you in the next one.